Broadcasting live from the Business Radio X studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for High Velocity Radio.
Lee Kantor here, another episode of High Velocity Radio, and this is going to be a good one. I hope you have your paper and pen or digital device with you, because there's going to be a lot of really smart things being said today. Today's guest is Joey Zoccali. He is an author, a speaker, a business strategist with Grow with Coach Joey. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, Lee. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm excited to learn what you're up to. Let's get started with just tell us a little bit about your coaching practice. How you serving folks?
Okay. That's a great one to start, I guess. Right now, we have several different programs. I've tried to align everything up with what would fit into a person's schedule, especially when you get to the entrepreneurs who are busy. We have a one-to-one program, which is typically a 6-month commitment. We also run a 90-day one-to-one program, and that's probably what I'll mention a little bit today here. We call it the fix and scale model, where we kind of dive into the one constraint, we blow it open, and then we take scaling from that. That's a 90-day program. We do that one inside of a group as well, in a mastermind. So that's kind of what the picture looks like as far as the lineup goes.
So what's your backstory? How'd you get involved in coaching?
Lee, that's a great question. I've actually been in business myself over 30 years. I actually have a financial services background. I was an investment banker. I took companies, participated in distribution for IPOs like Outback and Checkers and all the golf clubs and Blockbuster back in the day. Ran a private practice as well for many years. At the same time, made a few investments into some marketing companies that actually, in order to make those work, I had to actually grab the reins. So I was pretty busy there for quite a few years. I've taken 3 companies above the 7-figure mark, one of those above the 8-figure mark during that time. And actually, I was kind of winding everything down. I kind of kicked back here in Florida, nice little house. I get sunsets, I get the beaches. But man, I'll tell you, it's when I wound everything down, it got pretty boring all of a sudden. And I decided, I've been given advice my whole life and never got paid for it. So why don't I go ahead and help some businesses out and see if I can't make a couple bucks doing so. So, that's kind of how it all evolved. And I'm happy to say, I work with some great companies, some great guys, some great businesses. And it's just at a point in my life where making money while giving back is pretty personally rewarding.
So do you have a niche or an industry that you specialize in, or is this kind of industry agnostic, this kind of work?
In a sense, it's agnostic. Businesses have the same issues, business to business to business. I do, however, lean towards the trades guys, the plumber, the HVAC, the electrician, the chimney sweep. These guys are hard workers. They're out in the sun. They're hard. These businesses are really hard to get up and over the hump. These guys, really bust their tail a lot. And I find that just by helping, put a little organization in, a few great strategies, that their businesses turn around so quickly, and it's so rewarding that I find, working with those guys to be easier on me, as well as very productive when we engage.
You mentioned the fix and scale framework. Do you mind kind of digging in a little on that framework? What does it mean, and how does that help folks?
Well, sure, I'd love to. The fix and scale is the name. You talk to businesses, and most of these guys or women, when they start, they break from another company doing the same thing because they feel they can do it better. And you take the case of a baker and who bakes cakes, and she decides, everybody tells her her cakes are so wonderful, she should start her own business. Well, she says, okay, and she does that, and then realizes she can bake great cakes, but there's a lot of other aspects of the business that she didn't realize were there. It's the same thing with some of these trades businesses. We had great skilled craftsmen, great guys who can who can just, work miracles when it comes to the fixing and the fixing up and correcting and building and etc. But they do, however, often miss some tools that would make their life easier. The 90-day fix and scale framework is very, very simple. What we do is through an assessment we call the hierarchy business success assessment. We ask about 15 to 20 questions. We look at several areas of the business, 5 total, and we determine where their biggest bottleneck, where that biggest constraint, what is holding this company back from blowing the doors off. And what we do is we hone in with that, with the owner, and we go ahead and we put all the strategies, all the tools, all the horsepower behind blowing that constraint and fixing it so that it doesn't come back to haunt them. If there's a few more behind that, we'll fix those too. But once we normally pull the plug on that bottleneck, the doors open up and allows us to start scaling or growing the business the way they want it to.
Now, is there kind of usual suspects when it comes to that bottleneck? Are they usually in a couple areas?
Yeah, you'll often find those in probably one of 3 areas. A lot of these guys are making good money. They're grossing. I was talking with the guy today. He's at 1.9 million a year right now. He's having his best year ever. Yet his expenses are about 1.6 or 7. Just he's profiting, but he doesn't see the profit because the margins aren't there and because the setup isn't there. So profiting, that's the first thing. A lot of people talk about scale. They talk about that top line revenue. That's wonderful, but without the profit, it's all smoke and mirrors. Now, behind that profit, obviously, is pricing. It's SLAs. It's what are they, the structure of the business, the overhead they're carrying, but also it's, and this takes you to the second big one is how are they running their sales? Do they have a top end of their funnel? Do they have a strategy with which to close business? Do they have a way of delivering that efficiently? Is there a backlog? Are they carrying receivables? Is the marketing that they have efficient? Do they need more clients? Are they overbooked in some cases and unable to deliver? Are their skills good enough to do that? Once those 2 things are kind of under control, the third thing, and not always the case, but can we get this business owner running this ship without being in the field, without being on a truck, without looking at reports day in and day out? And can we teach him and can we help him set up a delegation system with the right ways to delegate so that he can get what he needs to get done by putting attention on growing and scaling while the other things take care of themselves? Now, there's a few other points, but those are the main ones which we would focus on.
Now, with your background in finance and the number side of the businesses, does that give you kind of almost an unfair advantage when you can probably at a glance see some of these problems just by looking through their books a little bit?
I've read a lot of red herrings in my day and plenty of prospectuses, and I've seen leverage, I've seen no leverage, and I'll tell you, compared to some of the companies going public, this is a little simpler. But there is one line that I always look for on a balance sheet, and that is there's a line called retained earnings. And I always almost go there first because if I see retained earnings, that tells me that the owner isn't taking every penny out of the business for their yachts, for their fast cars, for their house payment, or whatever the case may be. They're treating the business like an entity. If that's in place, I know I'm kind of dealing with the guy that would be easier to scale. So with that in mind, when you have retained earnings and you have a profitable balance sheet, these guys are going to sell someday. And putting the balance sheet, the cash flow statement, the P&L all in place allows them to be able to go to market with their business much easier than if you had to just walk in and do it from scratch. So, yeah, I think there's probably a little bit of an advantage.
Now, is are most of your clients working towards some sort of an exit? Is that, or do you tell them, hey, build this as if there is an exit? Like you have to have the end in mind. Is that part of your coaching also?
A lot of these guys have, let me put it to you this way. There's always an end to the business. There always is. Okay. Eventually it's going to end just like you and me, Lee. Okay. But there is an end. So whether they're actively building toward it, passively building toward it, looking forward to it, or avoiding it, they're on the path to moving out of their business. So there's only a few ways you can get out of your business. One is you can just close the doors. And unfortunately, a lot of these guys get into business with the idea that I'll work this for 15, 20, 30 years, and then I'll sell the business and have money to retire. It's not always the case. Only about 15 or 16% of businesses that go to a business broker to help for sale are actually set up to sell. Most get turned away, which then you have to ask, okay, what are the other things? I mean, the owner can sell it to his employees, but that takes a lot of prep and a lot of planning, typically at least 20, 25 employees to pull an ESOP off. Another way is that he can just scale it and then sell it on the open market if he's lucky enough for asset value and maybe a little goodwill. It's not a huge cash out, but it is something. And then finally, he can look at transitioning by giving the business or selling the business to his children. One way or another, it's going to happen. The cleaner the balance sheet, the cleaner the operation, the cleaner the sales. If we're seeing quarter over quarter growth, 20, 30, 40 quarters in a row, we know we have a business that has value. If the owner is not even in it and he's running it 90% absentee, that's a very viable business. And then the last one is the guy have a strong enough program? Is he good enough at execution and operations in order to possibly roll up? So you have a plumber in a particular area and there's a few smaller plumbers. Keep in mind, a lot of these guys are boomers and they're getting out of business and they're looking for ways to get out. Well, that makes it ripe for some younger guys who have a business to be able to go out and acquire that business, a book, a cash flow, assets, trucks, equipment, whatever the case may be, which gives them the roll-up concept where, in essence, you could roll up 2, 3, 4, 5 of those over a period of a couple of years, and you'd be primed for a private equity sale. Now, those are rare. Most guys don't look that far ahead, but I mean, that is very, very doable. It's a great strategy if it's the right owner with the right consistency and the right expectations.
Now, one of the things that you use with your clients are inversion thinking. Can you talk about what that is and how it works?
Okay. Inversion thinking, it's not a new concept. It was developed by one of the Stoics, I believe Marcus Aurelius. Could have been Epictetus. But it's an interesting twist. Whether you're running a department, let's say a sales department, or a customer service department, whether you're running a $10 million or $20 million business, whether you're starting up and just getting going, what inversion thinking does is it changes the way we might strategize. So you could take a program or a pilot. We're going to increase the sales by X amount in 6 months or a year, whatever the case. Or I'm going to start a new business and roll it out. One of the first things using inversion thinking would be to ask, let's project ourselves 12 months into the future. It's now, 9/11 of 2026. In looking back, how did we fail to pull this off? What did we do or not do, which caused this whole thing to fail financially? We're embarrassed. Our reviews are bad. We've lost money. We've lost face. What happened? How did we fail so badly? And now you brainstorm that list and you brainstorm it with your people. And if that's the case, now we start looking at this and we go, well, what happens is we expose what the owners and the employees might be thinking but aren't saying. And we bring all that to the surface. So now we can categorize all of these issues, and then strategically we can go ahead and implement strategies so that those things don't happen. so that by using the inverse of what we want to happen, we all want to succeed, but how would we fail? We now get the list of things that we need to make sure we cover so that in 12 months we're not failed and we're successful. Very powerful, very, very powerful. And if anybody love to try that, it's a great exercise, and we do it all the time.
So when you play out kind of this worst case scenario and explore all the possible kind of points of failure and what that looks like and what it feels like, and so you can prepare in advance and maybe eliminate some of those things from happening, I'm sure that your clients are like, this is a little uncomfortable.
Of course. It's very uncomfortable, Lee. I mean, we could play patty cake or we could dig in and get real. And, I don't know. I was born in the Northeast. I'm pretty much all Italian. I come from a strict background. And sugarcoating is nice. Don't get me wrong. There is a place and a time to sugarcoat and press the flesh. But if we're going to get real and we're talking about your business, we're talking about your family, we're talking about your employees, your vendors, your customers, and your commitment to the community to build jobs. I mean, really, that's what as a business owner, your job's just to build more jobs. I mean, that's one of your jobs, is to create more jobs for those around you and improve their lives while you improve yours as well as your customers. We can't skate the issues. I mean, I think that's one of the first things that happen, sometimes when people have really no idea what is it like to work with a strategist one-on-one. I'm your best friend and at the same time, your harshest critic, because I'm looking at you and your business from a 40-foot view. And sometimes, it's not so pretty. And this even goes for businesses that are doing really well. Okay. Some of the owners, and you wouldn't believe, they're 30, 40, 50 million a year in business, yet they still bring in a strategist, a coach, because there are things that they don't always see. And the strategic ones do this much better. But there are things that they don't see, but you got to be real. And I think being real is the issue.
Right. I think it's so important that coaches remember, you're there to be a trusted advisor. You're there, for some tough love. You're there for support and accountability. You're not there to be their best friend. And sure, there might be times where you can hang out and have a beer, but that's not the goal, isn't to just be their buddy and that they like hanging out with me. Your job is to help them get to a new level. That's why they're hiring you.
Correct. Yep.
I think some coaches miss that in the training, that they think,
I'll tell you,
that they want to be their friend. And then, so everything's about being their friend. And then it's kind of, sometimes they're not willing to go out on the line to challenge them and to ask them to defend choices and to hold them accountable.
Yes, you're hitting the nail right on the head. From being in this space, I can just tell you that there's guys who are good coaches, and there are guys who are good consultants, and there are guys who are good strategists, and there's guys who are good fractional CEOs, CMOs, CFOs, and they all have a place. But it's hard for me to go, okay, you're profiting 4.5% in an industry which the average is 23%. Why are we so far off? And to ask that question, just go, well, why do you think you might not be hitting your goals? It's almost like being a dilettante. It's, to try to bring them to some idea of why this might be happening, when you can look and go, okay, your overhead's too high, your compensation plan's terrible, you don't have enough money coming in, you haven't established an income stream or revenue on a regular basis, your margins are tight, and you're in debt at 25%. Why do you think we're at this number? We got to clean this up.
Right. And then when you go to them with a solution, go, let's pick one Let's pick the biggest one and let's work on it and make that go away. And if you do that relentlessly, you're not going to have these problems.
Yep. And that's where we come in with the 90-day fix and scale. We blow that out of the water. We put in a little bit of delegation. We teach them a little bit of how to think, how to avoid the pitfalls. We give them some tools that they can use to make better decisions and better strategies, and then help them develop a roadmap so they can see the next 6 months, the next 12 months, the next 24 months. And that's what we do in the 90-day fix and scale. Really excited about the program.
Yeah, and I think it's a powerful way to attack these things. You're not biting off too much, but you're biting off enough where you can make a difference in a short period of time.
Yep.
Now, when you're working with your clients, how are they doing when it comes to creating that balance that they want to have in their lives for the short term and for the long term? They're trying to, I'm sure in their head, they're trying to build this life and they're trying to make a living for themselves. But what are some things that they could be doing to, maybe get that short and long term ball moving in the right direction?
Good question. The one thing that you'll typically find, especially in the trades guys and home services guys, they work hard. They're not afraid to work. They're not afraid to get dirty. They're not afraid to roll up their sleeves. They're not afraid of 12-hour days. The problem is that the industry has conditioned the industry that is the way to succeed. The only way you can do is to grind and grind and grind. I've grinded, and I'm not a believer of grinding. I think very strongly that given the owner the right tools to learn how to delegate a little bit, to learn how to put in the sequences and the checklists of how things get done, to be able to help him get rid of some of this stuff so he has a little more time to think, and he can reduce that overall stress that he's feeling by having enough income come up so that he can replace not himself but some of the duties and tasks and functions. So one of the things that we always do is we go heavy on time blocking, especially for the owner. These guys will work on their business, and I'm going to tell you, and this is really one of the critical things that I see. Listen, coach, I don't have time right now for coaching. I got so much work to do. I'm overwhelmed. I don't have time for coaching. I'd love to, but that's a luxury I can't do right now. Lee, that is the exact person that needs help more than anything, because with a few simple tools, okay, the Eisenhower matrix, the calendar blocking, these simple tools could help them so tremendously now find time to work on their business, not just in it.
Now, do you find that a lot of times people get hung up on tasks that they're doing because they've always done them, and they're not kind of opening their mind to that somebody else can do this? Just because you've done it and you're the best one to do it, you can find somebody to delegate this to, and maybe they'll be at 80% and will work towards a higher percent of competency, but you got to let it go. I mean, there has to be error. I'm sure that when you say to them, well, show me your calendar, I'm sure it's not that hard to find time for a coach in that week.
No, that you're correct. I will tell you, there are great tools out there that sometimes we'll use, especially in that case. And I don't want to plug any of them here, but a tool like ActiveTrack, which monitors everything that happens for the business owner and his employees, you can actually start finding where they're spending time. They were scrolling Facebook a little bit. Oh, they're on Instagram. Oh, they're taking an hour and a half lunch with some buddies at the bar. Oh, and there's always a good reason for it. Okay. That's the one thing. There's always a good reason to push the necessity, the work that you need to do, into the future. And when there's accountability, that accountability changes and they either level up or they say this isn't for me. And I think that's that's the way it is.
Now, what is there a story you can share that maybe illustrates how the coaching with you can work? What is share an example of maybe the challenge the company or the person came to you with, and how you were able to help them get to a new level? Obviously, you don't have to name names, but just what was the problem they had when they contact you, and how were you able to help them?
Okay, so I have a business that I'm working with. They are an HVAC company, and they were doing about 2.6, 2.8 mil in the HVAC space. And then they got the idea from a relationship. It was he knew that a guy was selling this plumbing service. His plumbing service was small, probably 700,000-800,000 a year, not really big, but they put a deal together, and the guy with the successful plumbing business sucked in the HVAC business sucked in this plumbing business. All of a sudden, pure chaos. So, you call, what can we do? What can we do? Well, I'll just tell you that sorting that out, keeping it all separate. The agreements they had was more than a handshake. I had to help them go get attorneys to bind this thing. The reformatting of the combining the office phones, the everything that had to happen, the social, the press releases, the branding, all of that was almost all had to be redone. Now they've come out of it. They're over 5 million, but it took 18 to 24 months for that to happen. But it was, the owner put some serious hours in because he wasn't prepared to take that on, but he thought he was because his one business ran so well. So,
right. The unintended consequences.
Yep, exactly. And remember, I talked to you earlier a little bit about inversion thinking. Well, that would have been a great time to sit down and really do that model. Doing great. I mean, I see him about once a month now. We were a lot closer, but about once a month, and it's for accountability. It's for, sometimes, Lee, some of these guys have no one to talk to. They're running businesses. They're stressed. They got payroll to make. They got client complaints. They got social media that needs taken care of. They got people calling them, selling them stuff. They're vendors. They're out of, they run their lives almost by interruption as a way of, their business strategy, which isn't healthy.
Right.
But,
like they're running it like an emergency room. They're just triaging whatever's in front of them.
Yeah. And what we try to do is we try to bring order to that chaos. And it's a little bit, you can't go in and just whack it over the head and have it good tomorrow. It's a growing process. And now the more capable, the more determined, the more energy, the more drive and ambition and the ability to execute, the easier this whole thing goes.
So now, is there anything that our listeners right now could be doing to make a difference? Is there kind of a low-hanging fruit that pretty much everybody, if they did this, they would benefit from that you could share?
I could share dozens, but I'll share one, maybe two with you. Okay.
Yeah.
One of the things that I almost always have to correct. Now, keep in mind, I have a marketing background, okay, as well as the finance background. But one of the things I always have to correct is the sales cycle. And when I say that, I mean the client journey. How does one start, and what does the client journey look like from acquisition all the way through referral? And in each step, broken down as cleanly and as clearly as you have, is there scripting that addresses that part of that cycle? And oftentimes everything is, they just wing it. They don't answer the phone correctly. They miss calls. They don't ask good questions. They fail to close the customer. They don't know how to give a bid. They don't know whether to go face to face or email quotes out. That's a whole other nightmare. But that client journey needs to be really drawn out in a circle at each one with what you say from answering the phone all the way for asking a referral. And then when you do that, you'll see whether it's your delivery, whether it's, the amount of time it takes, whether it's satisfied customers, where is that bottleneck? Where is the bottleneck in your client journey? Because that's going to relate to when we spoke about earlier, some of the things like the profit, the sales, and the delegation. That all comes into play and overlays on that client journey. Because if we can't deliver a wonderful experience for the client, we're going to have trouble in business. So when you overlay those two things, you can actually get a really good idea of at least kind of where we should start.
Yeah, that's great. Great advice. And I think that you can tell in a short period of time, you probably make a big difference in these organizations, I would imagine. What's your process like? Do you start with a discovery call? Like how does someone begin an engagement with you?
We can start with the discovery call. We also send out the assessment, the business hierarchy assessment, which I spoke about earlier. Then you would actually do the assessment. Comes to me, a copy comes to you. Then we have a free training set up where you actually go on and we'll show you exactly how to take that report and apply it to your business. And there's, no charge on any of that. This is, we want you to succeed. So then we always offer the opportunity to do that discovery call once they see that this is something they'd be interested in. We do a discovery call, and then we'll often follow that up with a coaching call to kind of hone in on exactly what we would do with them, and then we leave that up to them whether they'd like to go one-on-one, whether they'd like to go into our next available group, or just join the mastermind.
So if somebody wants to learn more, have a more substantive conversation with you, what is the coordinates to connect?
You can connect with me at email right now would be Joey Zoccali at focalpointcoaching.com. Yes, I'm certified. Or you can get me on my socials at Grow with Coach Joey.
So if they went into LinkedIn and typed Grow with Coach Joey, they'd be able to find you?
They'd type Joey Zoccali.
It's Joey Zoccali on LinkedIn or like on Facebook or Twitter.
Facebook X. Or Instagram, yeah.
Yep.
Grow with Coach Joey, yep.
Good stuff. Well, Joey, thank you so much for sharing your story today. You're doing such important work, and we appreciate you.
Lee, I appreciate you taking the time, and I hope I was a good subject for you today, okay?
Great advice, man. I appreciate you.
Yep.
All right, this is Lee Kantor. We'll see you all next time on High Velocity Radio.